Hi there. Welcome to Life Between Coasts, the podcast where we dive into your personal journeys connected through synchronicities. So grab your coffee, light a candle, and let's begin. I'm your host, Leah. We're glad you're here.
I'm Arius.
Hi, Arius.
Hey,
Welcome to the show.
yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm so happy that you've joined us
Mm.
today. And just to kind of give a little prelude here, so I've known you for a few years. You've been a
Yes,
tax client.
yes.
I first was introduced to you by your parents
Uh-huh.
as you were an up and coming graduating high school and moving
Yeah,
on to your career.
yeah.
So give me a little bit of background about you.
So, like Leah said, my name is Arius Richmond, born and raised in Ypsilanti, Michigan. I am 26, and sometimes I forget that. Yeah, right now, I guess I would say I'm on a path of just self-improvement and kind of just, doing what I feel is right or what is my calling right now. It's real estate. I feel as if real estate wasn't the ideal picture, then I'd probably be doing something in sales.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, right now I'm just kind of focused on trying to be the best version of me and just trying to get 1% better every day.
Excellent.
Mhm.
Now, what? Now, tell me. So you grew up in Ypsilanti.
Yes,
So all of your 26 years have been here.
yes.
And what have you seen in the last 26 years of those first 26 years of your
Yeah,
existence?
yeah,
Quarter of a century.
yeah, I know. I've seen community.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen how community can change
Mm-hmm.
and how Ypsilanti is becoming one of those places where people want to start to come into.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting to see, I call it gentrification, but we're starting to see just diversifying of different Ypsilanti communities. What I would say is that being exposed to different countries, but also to just different cities and seeing how people live has given me a wider viewpoint than Ypsilanti.
Mm-hmm.
And I've even been in spaces where people really can't pronounce Ypsilanti, so that just makes me understand Ypsilanti is a very small place. It's not the end all to be all, but it's definitely given me my humble beginnings.
Right.
Mm.
Right. Well, and of course, it's most recently has been compared to as like the Brooklyn,
Yeah,
quote unquote, to Ann Arbor.
yeah, and
Is
yeah,
what Ypsilanti. It's the artist
yeah,
destination and with Depot
creatives
Town and all of
for
that, very
sure.
creative.
Yeah.
But it is a good spot. Now, what made you? Now, did you decide to go right into real estate from high school, or what did
No,
you decide?
that's a really good question. So growing up, I played basketball,
Okay.
basketball, football, track. My family's a sports family.
Mm-hmm.
Real estate came, after I graduated, essentially college, and my college career was over after that.
Mm-hmm.
Real estate wasn't something that I just jumped off right into. Real estate was something that came later down the road. I even think like real estate is something that it's something that allows me to serve people, and real estate is like I say isn't my end all be all, but right now it allows me to serve people in the season of life that I'm in right now.
Mm-hmm.
I got into real estate after taking a big, bet on myself.
Okay.
Before real estate, I worked at a tech startup,
Okay.
and in that tech startup, I won't go too deep into it, but while I was there, I had a divine intervention with Christ, and that essentially pivoted me to real estate. And the way it kind of worked out was one day I woke up and said, "Yeah, I don't want to do this anymore." Went to my job, and I just couldn't. My job was from like 8 to 5 or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and from 8 to 12, I was supposed to make some calls. Couldn't make the calls.
Mm-hmm.
Went out to my boss who was taking a smoke break, and made up some sort of lie, telling him I had to leave for the day. And I remember this vividly. He was like, "Arius, you aren't quitting, are you?" I was like, "Nah." I went in my car, I ate my sandwich, and I never came back. And then
Yeah.
the next day or the next week, I was in real estate classes, and here I am. So it's just been I always reference into like deep jumping off into the deep end, and
Mm-hmm.
for a while it was like I jumped off to the deep blue, and I felt like I was drowning, but through different trials and tribulations, and just never not quitting on myself, and just believing that everything that I was doing was for a reason. Here I am in front
Yes.
of you.
Yes. Well, right. So you say So you say trusting yourself,
Yeah.
jumping into that deep blue
Hmm.
and just kind of just giving it all to the
Yeah.
universe, to God, to
Yeah.
whomever. You say you had a spiritual
Yeah.
intervention. What happened there?
So, I was getting out of a relationship, and I believe if something is meant for you, then you're going to be at peace with it. And if
Hmm.
something is not meant for you, then God isn't going to allow essentially for peace to to coexist.
Hmm.
And I was in a relationship where peace really didn't coexist. And for me, that was the first time that I ever voluntarily departed essentially from someone, or in simple terms, breaking up with somebody.
Right.
And that was something that was very hard for me to do. And on the opposite side of doing something that was very hard for me to do, it allowed for God to place certain people in my life that spoke to me in in a certain way that I knew only God was, ordaining these people to speak to me at that point in time.
Okay.
And after having confirmation from speaking with these individuals, it was just a situation where real estate was always something that I wanted to get into. It wasn't really being an agent, but I knew I wanted to buy, sell, and invest in real estate.
Right.
And I guess, flip the switch for me was, why not learn? Why not see what people are doing, where people are succeeding at, or people are failing at, so that when I start my investment journey, then it's coming from experience, from seeing where people fail and seeing where people succeed at a very high level.
Right.
So, like I said, for me, being an agent is something that allows me to serve people at a very high level. But I believe this is giving me the tools that I need to do whatever it is God calls for my life later on.
Right. Now, what do you find in the real estate field? What do you find in your service to people? What do you?
Um, I like to tell stories. Whenever I'm meeting with clients, I'll tell stories.
Right.
I just had a closing, and I was representing both the seller and the buyer. The sellers wanted to get moved to Oxford, get closer to family,
Okay.
and they originally had their property listed with a different agent who was unsuccessful in helping them essentially acquire or achieve that goal.
Mm-hmm.
And for me calling them, because in real estate, being even a real estate agent, it's a very competitive field.
Yes.
So it's like a eat what you kill sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And for me calling them, meeting them, and closing them 3 weeks later, it was a situation of or a realization of me picking up the phone, me calling them, me meeting with them was all ordained. I think all the clients that I work with is just God ordained, because
Mm-hmm.
if I wasn't supposed to be doing real estate, I would have been gone a long time ago because of how competitive it is.
Right.
So what I see is that the way that I communicate, the way that I show up to people, allows them to achieve whatever it is that they're looking to do. So I think just even just pushing God's kingdom forward is just really being the guide through real life changes. So it's not even about real estate. It's about being the guide through real life changes that people need to have. And a lot of people don't necessarily have that guide, or don't know how to get from point A to B.
I agree with that
Hmm.
statement wholeheartedly, because you are a guide.
Hmm.
You are helping somebody either sell or buy the biggest purchase of their entire life in
Yeah.
most cases.
Hmm.
But not only that, but it's their home.
Yeah.
It's where they're creating family. It's
Hmm.
where they're creating memories.
Yeah.
And so you're a part of that.
Yeah.
I remember one of the synchronicities that I had with a buyer. They were
Hmm.
purchasing a home. They were in Royal Oak,
Hmm.
and we were looking at the house, and they were very interested in it. And we were walking, and we went through the house, and we walked downstairs into the basement, and we walked back up, and I looked out of the side door going out to the outside patio, and I looked
Hmm.
down, and there were all the grandchildren's names that were carved in
Oh
the
wow.
cement.
Yeah.
And I turned and I looked to my buyer and I said, "This house is yours." And they looked at me and they said, "Why?" I said,
Yeah.
"My name is carved in the cement."
Yeah.
And they bought that house.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
That's the house
Yeah.
that they bought.
Yeah.
And they chuckle every time.
Hmm.
But yeah, that was, and it was actually the stars aligned for them, because they were actually supposed to be on a New Year's trip to Paris where he was
Hmm.
going to propose, but
Hmm.
things fell through. I think one of them ended up with COVID or something
wow.
to that point.
Hmm.
But they weren't able to do that trip. Still became engaged, but they were able to find a house because that house came on the market, and that would have been on the market while they were gone.
Yeah.
So all of those things aligned perfectly for them.
Yeah, and it's sometimes like even being in the industry, we can get caught up with deal after deal after deal after deal. But I believe that we're showing up in these people's lives for a
Right.
specific reason,
Right.
and we may, we may help them sell a home 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago or whatever the case may be,
Mm-hmm.
but they were making, as you just said, one of the biggest, I guess, transitions in their life, and
Mm-hmm.
the how we show up will have an impact on how they remember their home. So
Mm-hmm.
how people attach, to their biggest asset, whether it be buying or liquidating real estate. It's like it's
Mm-hmm.
and it goes back to why I think it is why I'm doing what I'm doing, because you can obviously see my skin color, so it's not necessarily a lot of when I meet people. It's sometimes interesting how they perceive me in terms of after hearing my voice on the phone, then seeing me in person. They say, "Oh, I thought you were a little bit older. Thought you were a different skin color." And I'm like, "No," but
Age, I
yeah.
would say you're older.
And some people, and I'm like, I grew the beard
You
out,
do.
so hopefully that that
Just
helped.
add a few years.
But yeah, it's just and to kind of double down on why I think I'm supposed to be why I'm on the right path. It feels like is because I love defying the stereotypes that
Mm-hmm.
people have just about people of my color,
Mm-hmm.
black people in general. So I like showing up and making people think a little bit differently on how they view, other ethnicities essentially.
Right.
Um, so,
Oh, I believe me. Have worked with so many different people in real estate.
mhm.
I don't know why somebody would have a question about where you come from or what your skin
Oh
color would be
yeah,
because this but
yeah.
and not being in your shoes, I wouldn't
Hmm.
understand that part. So I'm glad that you've brought that up because I would never have had that viewpoint in my brain.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't take any offense to it.
mm-hmm,
It just makes me understand the importance of how I'm showing up
mm-hmm.
and the importance of why it is that I'm doing what it is that I'm doing.
It's the showing up part.
Yeah.
It's the presentation. You're a
Hmm.
package. Everything that you
That's a good
do.
way to put it.
Yeah, you are. I mean,
Yeah.
because you're going to take their hand and you're
Hmm.
going to walk them through every step, whether they're buying or selling,
Hmm.
and even the move process. Because even just you go to a closing table, just because you collect your check doesn't mean your relationship is over.
No, it's after service and
So
after,
there's
yeah.
always the follow up. There's always tax time.
Hmm.
Hey, don't forget you closed. There's
Yeah.
some tax benefits. Don't forget to take your closing packet to your
Yeah.
tax person.
Yeah. a hundred
Things
percent
like
agree.
that. So there's
Yeah.
always the follow up. There's always the constant engagement
Hmm.
when you're in real estate. You have to keep your name out there because, like you said, it is extremely competitive.
Yeah, and it's so funny that you say that because I had a closing. I remember vividly. It was some helping, first some home buyers purchase a home, and when we were leaving, when I was opening up the door from, when we were leaving the closing table, they was like, "Oh, I feel like I'm let like mom and dad is not coming with me," and I was like, "That's pretty funny," because I was, like I said, the guy throwing through it all. So it's actually
Yes.
funny that you say that.
No, it is, and the fact that you are, and I'm going to go back to your age for a minute
Hmm.
here. The fact that you're 26,
Hmm.
and that you're on this path, and that you're very mature about it,
Hmm.
because there are certain, you have to think about 26-year-olds. If you're, or in general, I'm just talking about that generation because again, I'm 20 years older than you are,
Yeah.
so we
Yeah.
have some time in between us. But if you think about if you go to college right out of high school,
Hmm.
18 to 22, let's say you complete all 4 years, so
Hmm.
you start your life at 22,
Yeah.
and then maybe by 26 you're really just getting into your career. But here
Yeah.
you've been working at this for multiple years,
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
building clientele and you're getting a name for yourself, which is
Hmm.
a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. As you were talking, it's something came to my mind. Really, a hard passion for me is self identity, and what you just described doesn't really go or isn't talked about enough. So, for me, basketball or just basketball, football, track, that's what I knew. And when
Right.
I got to college, that's what I knew, basketball. And when I look back at it now, I probably wouldn't even been in college if it wasn't for basketball. Because if I went to a bigger school, like my mind would have been, coming from Ipsy to going to any bigger school, that my mind would have been expanded. But
Right.
um, for a lot of people, just coming from Ypsilanti, for a lot of people, they make these goals and they have these aspirations that they only tie to certain vehicles, which is either or let's just call it sports or music or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm never a dream killer, but also too, one of the things that I believe is a hard passion of mine that I'll pursue later on in life is I want to show not only the younger generation that looks like me, but also to people that specifically look like me, that you can achieve your wildest dreams in a lot of different vehicles, and
Right.
it doesn't have to necessarily be what we're just fed with the mainstream media in terms of sports or athletics or music or whatever the
And
case may be.
and truly, how there's a very small percentage elite
We
athletes
know
that get to
it.
the professional.
Yeah, and it's like
And
right off the gate, like either in middle school or high school, you'll know right off the gate who's the
if
good
you're
people.
only 5'6",
Yeah, and
you're
I'm
not
like,
going to the
I'm not, and I'm
NBA.
not, and it does take, because what comes with that is a reality check, and I've seen how that reality check changes how people perceive their own reality and their own self image. So a self identity crisis is a lot of times how people that was a good athlete, good student, and then let's just say they graduate either high school and they don't go play college and they a completely different person.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that's big for me is just being able to show them at a certain point, like, you can achieve what it is that you're looking to do in a completely different vehicle. But it's just not something that is exposed, or it's just not something that's even talked about,
Right.
enough.
Well, I always said that I would have been a supermodel, except for I wasn't 5'11" like Cindy Crawford. So, you know.
Yeah, no, that's funny.
But no, I have, and it's interesting because part of my clientele with the tax office, I have two basketball players.
Mhm.
Both, one is 6'11" and one's 7 foot, or
Mhm.
6'10" and 6'11", something
Mhm.
like that. They're like literally,
Yeah.
one's local here to Ipsy.
Mhm.
One was actually, he was a student at Eastern, also
Okay.
coaching with the basketball team
Okay.
there, and now he's off to, I think, working with the Utah Jazz was my
Nice.
last understanding.
Yeah, nice.
And so these guys are, obviously had the height, had the
Yeah.
skill, but they weren't playing, on the court
Mhm.
with NBA. They
Mhm.
they were both on European leagues.
Yeah.
That's the circuit that they went to, where a lot of ball players end up and things
Yeah.
like that, because you don't, again, that elite percentage that gets
Yeah.
there. And you don't want to be a dream killer, but you have to be a realist.
For
at
me,
times.
it's the, how you say, the elite percentage, but for me, I'm worried about the other remaining, and
Right.
that's what's more important about the other remaining in terms of like just exposure. I think for me, the exposure was the biggest thing, because I'm big on, like, once I see it, I can't unsee it. Like, I can't see a different way of living. I can't see how people live a little bit differently than I grew up looking at or experiencing, and I can't, once I see it,
Right.
it's like I can't deny that that's out there. So I think for me, it's just being able to be that outlet to exposure and showing that people you can achieve what it is that you're looking to do.
Right. Well,
Doing
and
something
if you look,
completely different.
do you think that you have that entrepreneurial spirit? Do you have?
I
You think
I
you get
would
that
not.
from
Yeah.
your dad, or do you think
I
family?
think I watched my dad work two jobs my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and
Hard worker.
anytime that I think that I get tired or some fatigue start to set in, it's just I go back to that realization. I watched my dad and my mom. My
Yes.
mom worked my entire life, so I watched both my parents work my entire life. So the entrepreneur spirit, I mean, I gotta give a shout out to Coach Richmond Driver School. That was something
Yes.
that my father did after COVID. So I think that was just something that the work ethic allowed for him to be. Go ahead.
But the key is, though, he retired and then
Yeah,
started in the
yeah.
second
For me,
career.
it's for me, it's a completely
So,
different
yeah,
path.
he
But like,
throttled forward.
yeah, I draw from his work ethic and his experience to fuel, and I believe I'm at a point in my life where I'm just trailblazing my own path, because
Yes.
I want, it's like with entrepreneurship, you take an idea like this. It's an idea. You took an idea, and when you make money from it, it's like you can't go back to not understanding that money just came from your mind.
Mhm.
So for me, real estate,
This is a passion.
yeah,
Free.
under,
No money
yeah.
is being made, but that's okay.
Yeah, and-
But that's okay, because this is the connection. This
Mhm.
doesn't need to make money. This is the connection between you and me.
Mhm.
This is your story and how you're telling me how you go through and wear your shoes and go through life.
And I agree with that. And at some point in time, if this does make money, then it's like, wow, I took an idea from my mind and I made money from it. So for me, real estate was something that was in my mind. I put in that action, I made money from it. So it's just like that entrepreneur. It's like that
Yep.
bug hit me.
Yep.
you know.
Yeah, and that's, of course, out of necessity, I started the tax office because of
Yeah.
the recession. So real estate was out of the question when all my eggs were in one basket,
Yeah.
but finance wasn't.
Yeah.
So that one worked for me. So now I'm able to have now 3 careers in my lifetime here. And so but it's pursuing your own path and just saying what is good for Arius and what am I going to do today to make my life better.
Absolutely, and I think that's the path that I'm on. Is just right now, it's foundation building, but at a certain point in time, touching late 30s into my 40s, yes, I want to have the flexibility to be able to pursue a passion project, and have that room to do something that doesn't have to make money,
Right.
So I guess that's why I am who I am right now, just
Yes.
because at a later point in
Well,
life,
I would
it's
love
like,
to do this just
yeah.
forever and not have to make money. I would just love to be able to not ever have to worry about
Absolutely.
those things and
Yeah.
just do this and
yeah,
talk
and
to people.
that's understandable.
That's the fun part. Now, now you talked about investing. Have you started doing any investing
Right.
in additional? So it sounds like you're investing in yourself. You're
Yeah.
investing and making sure that your path forward is good and
Yeah.
solid. But what?
Right now, investment wise, I have a few different people handling the proceeds that I do make from real estate. But obviously, having or acquiring a real estate portfolio is definitely something that's in my under 5-year plan. But right now, I feel as if I'm just kind of meeting the people, helping the people that I'm supposed to meet and help.
Right.
And within, the next 3 to 4 years, I can start pulling from those experiences with my own income and income that other people are helping me make, and start to, kind of go head first into the investment world and building my portfolio there. But I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I was gonna say,
go.
just the concept of an investment, though. I think the multiple streams of income, having things that come to you, or you make money while you sleep. I think that is like the ultimate end game. So that the passion projects, doing what God puts in my heart to do, is something that's why I am who I am right now,
Right.
and that's why my focus is the way that it is right now. Because I'm thinking more so later on,
Right.
and more so later on, I want to be able to do the passion project. I want to be able to do the things that doesn't have to make money. I'm doing as matter of fact, I'm giving money out so that it can be something that impacts and moves whatever it is that needs to be moved forward.
Right. But now. And I get that. So right now we don't have, so we're not actively investing or buying anything other than perhaps in a portfolio to increase those funds to be able to get to that certain point, which there's a lot of options out there to do things like some
that's the fun
self-directed
part.
IRAs and things. There's a lot of
Yeah.
sneaky things. I mean, unfortunately, some of the cheap ways that you could buy real estate, and I've touched on this briefly, like with tax auctions and things, it's just not the same. It's all market. You can't see anything. You don't even know what it looks like. So
I get
it's
to
really
see it
scary.
first.
So what
Yeah.
and everything is just the way that the market is. Lower
Yeah.
inventory, higher prices. It's
Yeah.
just not a really good investor market right now.
Yeah.
But the interesting part is that you have that seed planted inside you, so you know exactly what you're looking for, and you know that when you see that opportunity, you're ready to strike. You will figure it out, and how to do that. But the fact, again, I keep going. I'm going to keep going back to your age here a little bit. But the fact that you have this plan in mind. I mean, you could be a 10-year-old kid or a 12-year-old kid, and they say, "Well, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And you say, "Well, I just want to be rich. I want to be rich when I grow up." Well, that's not an answer. It's like, well, anybody could be rich. Truly, but you can be rich in a lot of ways. It doesn't have to be money.
Yeah.
Most people think rich equals money, and so it's just identifying
Rich in
those
time,
words. So it's
rich in health.
but there could be a lot of different things. You could have a balance. You could have a quality versus a quantity. You could have and that's a balance too. You have enough money to pay the bills, but then you get to explore that passion project, and maybe be what they quote, that starving artist, right? Because it is a thing. But being in your early 20s, your mid 20s, what started you on that plan? How did that spur? Because most people, I encourage a lot of people when especially if they're in a working environment where they're on a W-2, let's say, and they're not contributing to a 401k or a 403b. I'm not a financial advisor, but I say, look, start now, because you're gonna, do you like to go to concerts when you're young? Do you like to do these things? If you want to do those things when you're retired, you need to have money to do that, and you can't do that on Social Security. So it's like, why is it in your mind to start thinking about those investments now? to want to be better for the future, to be able to
Yeah,
explore those passion
great
projects?
question. And then what came to my mind is I went through a period in my life where I'm sure people are familiar with that. I forget the brand name, but like you sell like Cutco knives.
Hmm.
I did Amway, and I did
Mm.
Amway for 3 to 6 months.
Hmm.
And Amway was something that was I was not going
Eye
to have.
opening.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good way to put it. Eye opening. But the foundation of everything in the way that I am is exposure.
Hmm.
And even though Amway had its way that you could make money, but it put you around people who had this mindset of wanting more for themselves.
Right.
And that was something that I was exposed to my senior year of college. So that was something that was a seed planted in my mind. And I get like it goes back to me saying it was all God ordained in terms of how I even got into real estate. Real estate for me is the way that I can serve people. An agent is not the end all be all to my
Right.
own journey. But for me, having that exposure to seeing people live life a little bit differently, live life in a way where money necessarily wasn't their main focus. They didn't wake up saying, I got to go trade my time for dollars, was
Hmm.
something that was like, well, how do I get there? And as I'm on the trajectory of getting there, it's the things that I'm learning and experiencing and going through that allows me to tell somebody when I'm 40 that's my age with the same mindset, like, hey, you can go this way or that way, or I can just give you insight into this whole journey, and then you can decide if this is something that you gotta want to do or not.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, even this type of mindset, it comes with a lot of. Can you cuss on here? Oh, it comes with um a lot of perseverance. It comes with a lot of perseverance and a lot of trusting that the higher power God is leading you down a path that is for your good and His glory.
Yeah, I like that. I like how you thought about, you're like, we could take the
Yeah.
easy route and use a four-letter word, or we could actually explain ourselves.
Yeah.
I do like that because
Yeah.
I think that's, it, I curse. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. There's several four-letter words that leave this mouth. Don't get me wrong, but I do think that my vocabulary is much deeper and stronger. Where if I can think about it and find a word that better explains it, it's the better way to think. Because it
Yeah.
also gives you that moment to pause. Because let's say if you were in that moment of panic or anger or whatever, if you're just using and flying off those four-letter words,
Yeah.
you're not taking that moment to pause to realize the impact of what's coming out of your mouth.
Absolutely. It's so funny. Even being like it's just a different skills that I'm learning,
Mhm.
even being in the industry that I'm in. But I can say the same thing in about 5 different ways to about
Absolutely.
5 different people.
Right, and sometimes to the same person, and they still don't understand what you're
Yeah,
saying.
and I know, and that's where the deep breaths and patience comes in. I
Patience
know.
is a virtue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Patience is an absolute virtue.
Absolutely.
And and just having that impact on those lives, is being that guide through the real estate side. But then you're saying, holding, God basically has your back.
Yeah.
He's holding your hand and guiding you just the same.
Mhm.
But it's those interactions. It's how you relate to people, how you find that connection, how you find that common ground.
Mhm.
And I think that that's where the industry can sometimes get a bad name, because there
Oh, yeah,
are
for
your
sure.
cutthroat realtors.
For sure.
Don't get us wrong.
For sure.
My mister, for instance,
Mhm.
is a long time real estate broker as well, and one of his favorite sayings is getting, and it doesn't, this is not gender specific by any means, but specific to the animal that I'm about to quote. We always like to say that getting between a realtor and their commission is like getting between a mother bear and her cubs.
Oh, yeah. No.
They do like protect
Absolutely.
that very, very closely, and of course
Absolutely.
with everything that's happened with the NAR, it's a little bit more cutthroat in that regard.
Yeah.
But set aside money, there is those select people that are only in it for the money, and that, but there are the people that we take the time. I've worked with a client for over 3 years to find the right house, and it was okay. And they say, I'm so sorry that we're not making a decision. I said, I'm not living in the house.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be
I always
there
say, like,
for the
I'm not
rest of
buying a
my
house. I'm
life.
not getting a loan. You are.
I'm not paying for this.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that you are happy with your purchase. And then in 30 days, you're going to say, why did I buy this house? I should have went for that house.
Yeah.
We don't want you to ever be in that position. We want to make sure that you're comfortable. That's why we build in those contingencies, and we make sure that you're happy with your purchase.
I 100% agree on that. It makes me double down on what I was saying. That go ahead.
You become a psychologist, really.
To a buyer or seller,
Both.
depending upon the reason that a seller wants to sell. But as you were talking, and what just kind of came to my mind is me double down on, like, I believe every client that I have is God ordained, and I believe it's all ordained, because if it wasn't ordained, or if I wasn't supposed to be in the industry that I'm supposed to, or being in real estate, I wouldn't be. It's so competitive that I'm like, sometimes I wake, I'm like, why am I doing this? But
Yeah.
it's those times, and it's just like I just keep reminding myself, like, I work like it's all on me, and I pray like it's all depending upon God. And I just kind of, there's a lot of, this is a learned thing, and I am learning this, but there's a lot of surrender that goes into essentially achieving your goals. Because at a certain point in time, you can try to control everything. There has to be some sort of release, because some things are out of your control. Some things there's no way for you to specifically try to get from point A to point B outside of having that higher power assist you and guide you to get to point A to B.
Right. And and I think those are some things that I'm still learning even about this right now here, because I think that everything has to be in a certain box, or it has to be done a certain way, and I'm supposed to be prim and proper, and this is how I'm supposed to relay myself, and I am prim and proper in most regards and things like that, but I think that after rewatching some of the videos, I've closed myself up a little bit too much, and some of my personality wasn't coming out, and so having people like you that I know that we can kind of play and go back and forth here a little bit helps to bring some of that out in me as well. So it gets me to be a little bit more comfortable in just sitting here and bringing out what we can about you, just the same, so
Absolutely. It's easier said than done, the whole surrendering part, but it's kind of, as you just said, this is a passion, so however it kind of as essentially comes together is how it's supposed to come together, and it's that surrendering and allowing that everything is going to align just the way it is.
Go through a spiritual awakening, you surrender, and you find yourself here, and what's next. So what are some of those goals? What are those next goals for you?
Good question. I guess what's some of those next goals for me? Just elevating. I have things that are about to transpire in my life that is going to elevate or transform me into a newer version of myself. And I think just kind of just focusing on the here and now, because you talk about my age and then talk about the mindset that I have. Obviously I can get trapped in just looking so far in the future, and I could forget what's right in front of me. And I think just having just focusing more on just what's happening, and having a deeper appreciation, because the things that I appreciate will magnify. So for me, I guess what's next is just kind of doubling back to what I said in the beginning, as far as just trying to be a better version of myself, but trying to be better in the areas of just focusing on the right now. Like, I got the ideas, the plans all for the future and everything like that. But for me, I'm understanding there has to be a bigger appreciation and gratitude for what I used to want and what I used to pray for, that is internalizing and becoming my reality, and appreciating that, and not just getting so lost and like, oh, what's next, and that's just something that I'm focusing on, just trying to be more appreciative and grateful for the things that are transpiring in my life.
And I'd have to say that the what's next is where people can get lost, because when you're a child, it's like, oh, when I'm 16 I can drive, or when I'm this I get here, or when I get here I get here, it's so you're always looking to what is next, when can I do this, or when can I do that. And so trying to be present, or definitely just being present, and focusing on and appreciating the blessings that you have, and receiving the abundance that you receive, then that is the good, the fruits of your labor. That's
trying
the
to
things,
enjoy that.
And to be filled with gratification that you've helped somebody find their perhaps forever home, or at least the home that they're going to be for that chapter, perhaps raising their family, or whatever it might be, the reason that they're purchasing or selling, the various reasons.
So I guess that's just pretty much kind of, I'm more so focused on it. It's funny to say, but I'm more so focused on the now. I understand that my mindset is set for what's next, but I'm just kind of put a bigger emphasis on.
Preparing for the future, but
Yeah,
focusing right here.
and appreciating what's in front of me.
And what would you say now for 20 somethings
Hmm.
in your position, maybe some that have gone through college that said, why did I get that degree? It's
Yeah,
not what I want to be in.
that's literally
Well,
me.
because that's what happens.
That's
Let's
literally
say
me.
somebody goes into computer technology and says, I don't really want to be stuck in an office by myself, not talking to anyone. I need to
Hmm.
be more sales. I need to
Hmm.
get out there and talk to people. This fits my personality better.
Hmm.
Or I need to do this, or I'd prefer to do this, or I need something that's more flexible.
Hmm.
Or let's say there's somebody that maybe didn't go to college
Hmm.
and said, I took the working route.
Hmm.
Real estate, you don't need college. You
No,
can do
you
a
can do it. You can
whole
do
lot
straight
of
out of high
things.
school.
You just need to have that perseverance. You need to
Hmm.
have that instinct to hit the ground and not be afraid to pick up the phone and say, hey, I am
Yeah.
Arius.
Yeah.
I am your real estate agent. What can I do for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So those are the things that you need to do. But what would you tell those 20 somethings what to do? That might be lost or not sure what their next step would be. How to seek out
Yeah.
even the higher power.
Yeah. I guess what comes to mind, like what first comes to mind is don't be scared to take a bet on yourself. No, like as I'm getting older and I understand that nobody's coming to save me. I understand that if I want something to change, something must change. Um, and I believe everything starts with curiosity. I think the curiosity leads to exposure that opens your mind up. Even being from Ipsy, it was good for me to have that exposure so that I'm able to understand that there's different ways of living. But what I would say is just don't be scared to take a bet on yourself, and don't and lean into the curiosity. Lean into the curiosity around whatever it is that's in your life. It doesn't have to be business related at all. It can be literally anything that you want in your life. Lean into the curiosity that you want, or that's calling you. Because that is something, regardless of what you believe, that is something that is drawing you near. Because I believe that it's people connected to you pursuing your purpose. So for me, I believe that the purpose that I'm on is people connected to me pursuing that, and they won't be impacted if I'm afraid or if I'm not leaning into the curiosity of what my purpose is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that answers it.
Yeah. No, I think that's perfect. I
Yeah.
think it's a wise statement
Mm.
for such a young body. If you think about it,
Yeah.
because it is. I have an old soul.
Mhm.
I've been there. I was that 14-year-old that would answer the phone. My dad was self-employed. He was a builder, construction, and so I'd answer the phone at home and take a message, and then he'd call him back because okay, mind you, this is before cell phones. So this is when we
Yeah.
still had an answering machine,
Yeah,
no
the
voicemail
yellow
even,
books.
So it was like, yeah, you had the phone book.
Yeah.
Funny enough, when I first moved to Ann Arbor, this
Mhm.
was late 90s,
Mhm.
before Google, before GPS and all of that, I actually carried a phone book around
Oh,
with me
wow.
in my car because the back of the phone book had maps, city maps.
Oh yeah, don't.
So if I
don't
ever
ask
got
me.
mixed up in Ann Arbor,
Yeah.
one-way streets, I could open up the map, find out where I was. This is
Yeah.
when you could actually read a map,
Yeah, don't ask me.
And so, but that's how I used to navigate around Ann
Yeah.
Arbor, Ypsilanti, and all of
Yeah.
those areas. But going back, I would take a message, and then my dad would call later on in the evening, and I'm returning a call for whatever it was, the seawall or whatnot. Oh yeah, we talked to your wife. Oh no, you talked to my 14-year-old daughter, and she's 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
sound just like a secretary.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, he's not in. May I take a message? What
Mm.
what work are you looking for? Give your number. All these different things. But I
Mhm.
knew the routine. That's the information he needed, so I wanted to make sure to get him the proper information. So that's where that
Maybe that exposure created the curiosity to want to know people's synchronicities in their life and things of that nature, and it's all led to this.
Absolutely. That's exactly it. Now what is your biggest curiosity
Um,
right now at this moment?
my biggest curiosity. That's a good question. Um, I guess my biggest curiosity is um. I guess I'm just gonna say what comes to mind, like the what ifs, because obviously having a passion in sports, it's always the what ifs. My biggest curiosity is who will I be, what does this all mean?
Mm-hmm.
Before we got on the camera, we talked about hindsight. It's a love hate relationship. And the things that I'm going through right now,
Mm-hmm.
my curiosity is why
Yeah.
am I going through? But it goes back into trust, but it's also too like I am curious to see what is all this, like even real estate, different things that happen in my life. What does all this mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
why am I going through all this? And I guess that's my biggest curiosity is why are the things that's happening, rather it be good or bad, why is it happening? And I think that's just my curiosity right now.
Yeah, I always think about when you think about the whys. I
Hmm.
always think about like that speck of sand, but it really comes back to the end of the very first Men in Black movie when they zoom out of the world and
Yeah,
we end up just being a marble
literally.
as it being played by aliens. They throw us in a bag at the end of the.
Hey, move
That's
on.
how I think about just
Yeah.
we're that speck, in the
Hmm.
universe, and how all of that can tie us together.
Absolutely.
So, well, and then of course, as we come to a close here, we need to ask you such an important question
Hmm.
because, as you know, we do have the anthem project.
Yeah.
So, Arius, what is your anthem?
My anthem, when you said this, I thought about it immediately. It is "Victory Lap" by Nipsey Hussle. I can play that in any stage of my life, and it's a classic. I'm actually gonna get that on vinyl. Like I love that album,
Okay.
but that specific song, Nipsey Hussle, "Victory Lap," you go play it and you understand what I'm talking about.
Okay,
Hmm.
okay. So we will add that to the playlist,
Hmm.
and that way, so will be on our YouTube
Okay.
channel. And thank you so much again
Thanks for
for
having me.
joining us.
Yeah.
And we'd like to thank everyone again here for joining us on Life Between Coasts. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye.